What's up, guys and gals of the movement world? It's Sean Mishka, the Movement Miyagi, coming to you once again for Football Beyond the Stats in our weekly movement play of the week here this week for week 5 of the 2022 National Football League season. And today we're going to get into one of my very favorite movers to watch. Lamar Jackson, my 2019 mover of the year, to see what it is that he did on Sunday Night Football, just like the week before with Patrick Mahomes on Sunday night, with all the lights and all the pressure and all the anxiety of the entire world watching what Lamar Jackson did with his movement skill, reaching into his movement toolbox at the most opportune of times, driving late in the game versus the Cincinnati Bengals, down by 1, 2-2 matchup versus another 2-2 team. Obviously, here, division rival Cincinnati Bengals. So let's go ahead, like we have had in the previous weeks, get ourselves into the play, see what Lamar did at maximum speed, and then at a number of angles, and then we'll get into it at slow speed. Now, obviously, when we talk about Lamar Jackson, most people talk about his legs, and rightfully so. And that's what we're going to do here today. Prior to this point in the game, I was actually quite critical of Lamar Jackson. In fact, numerous people that I have interactions with, I was pointing out some of the things that he was maybe missing, some of the affordances that he was missing in guiding his respective actions in this game. So for Lamar Jackson to do what he did in crunch time, guys and gals, that says something about the stability of those movement skills within his movement toolbox. The reason why I paused here is because I want to make a mention that when an individual is maybe facing the highest pressure and anxiety, we know that their perceptions, their cognitions, and their actions may become fixed or frozen, meaning they might have a certain paralysis by analysis, if you will, or there might be a certain constrained action there or constrained perceptions or, again, cognitions, particularly in the decision-making front. So we might see their entire movement skill shrink down a bit to levels that are far below that which what they typically have when the confines or the constraints of the platform that they are playing on might be lessened from key performance inhibitors. But the most skillful movers, the best movers, the most dexterous movers can do it in and across not only situations, but also conditions. Those conditions include those confluence of constraints in the form of late minute games, okay? Late minute situations, rather, within games, such as what we see here, 1:08 to go in the fourth quarter on Sunday Night Football. So, wanted to add that in there so you watch it through with this context as we paint this picture. Remember, context shapes content, and we have to look at the confluence of constraints here to paint those contextual factors a little bit more clearly for us. Now, this play doesn't last all that long. It's something like a 20-yard run. And you might be thinking to yourself as you're watching this, Sean, this doesn't look all that special. If you're saying that, you are lying to yourself. And of course, this sets up a Justin Tucker, maybe the greatest of all time at the kicker position to ever do it. This winning field goal that would have been good from 53. I don't know exactly what the yardage it was on it, but obviously, Justin Tucker, my only kicker to ever be awarded, or the only kicker to ever be awarded my movement play of the week last year or the year before now. So let's get into this play. Let's get into it at slow motion now because obviously even though it's a very short play, there's a lot of things that we can look at here, okay? When I talked earlier about those confluence of constraints, I want to point out a few things about Lamar Jackson. Obviously, he is exceptional on his feet. That was primarily what won him my 2019 mover of the year. But this previous offseason, through a midst of some criticism from the outside world that maybe started to look at or indicate that the way that he ran the football and how his skill set is oriented around running the football might not be conducive to being able to do this long term. And that led him to pack on a little bit of muscle mass. He was routinely saw throughout the offseason when he was working out with his personal trainers and his quarterback coach of being 12, 15, upwards to 20 pounds reportedly heavier than he had ever played at before. I think in the past he had been in that 207 to 208-ish range. Again, all reported numbers. And now I want to say the Ravens actually have him listed, the last I saw, at like 225 or something of that nature. Now that probably is a little heavy when we really look at him, because he's not like carrying a ton of muscle mass. He's not like built like a Saquon or somebody like that. But what I've been finding in my investigations, in my analysis of Lamar, is you can see that the extra weight is taking some time for him to get calibrated around. So the ways in his previous ways of behaving and acting, if we change characteristics, they could be action capabilities or characteristics, which obviously are going to change a bit as far as acceleration or speed qualities or capabilities, are going to change if someone is gaining 12, 15, 20 pounds, right? And I don't know exactly what the number is, but you guys should be able to get the picture here. The lighter something is, the quicker it's going to fly, if you want to think about it like that. My guess is that he didn't pack on a corresponding strength output or power output to correspond to that weight gain, that the weight gain probably came from either his own personal feelings to see how he felt at it, which is exactly what a player could or should do, as long as they are looking at it through the right lens. But it might also have come from the Baltimore Ravens and their apprehensiveness to sign him to the long-term deal that he desires. So they might have had trepidation, if you will, about signing him for this long-term deal, knowing that the way that he plays the game might be conducive to him becoming injured. So he, I believe, packed on the weight to become more durable. But the reason why I say all that is to say this, guys and gals, like I have noticed a difference in his actions, meaning what actions are being expressed, what actions are emerging from the way that he's making decisions and perceiving the opportunities, aka the affordances within the world. I don't think he's all completely recalibrated, to use Jacobs and Michael's direct learning ideas, yet to these new body scaled affordances. Okay. That was long-winded. I didn't even mean to make it that long-winded, but it's something to think about here, especially because he gets tripped up at the end. Now, 50% speed. We look at what's unfolding here, and I apologize, Winston, just like last week, has to make his presence known. As we get into this, I want to let you watch it in slow speed now, because there were so many layers to this that if we just watch it at 100% speed, we can see how difficult this is to actually, number one, analyze, but number two, really investigate as to what's happening, what's unfolding here. Guys and gals, I always talk about the problem and solution dynamics. Think about this as changing states of organization, problem and solution, and they are constantly emerging alongside of one another and in relation to one another. Look at how quickly the problem changes and Lamar's perceptions, intentions, and actions have to change in correspondence to that. First off, we know that he has the opportunity, either give it to number 17 here, depending on what the defensive end, I want to say that's Chase Hubbard, number 94, this defensive end here, not Trey Hendrickson, 91 down here. So 94, if you can see my mouse, left defensive end on the top of the screen here. This is what Lamar is reading, right? And I hate to use it like that, because the more skillful quarterbacks deciding to give it or to go, as Lamar ends up doing here, he ends up going, right? He doesn't give it to 17, isn't dependent on a cue per se, an if this, then that, but it's still a deep, rich, meaningful relationship. The more skillful guy is not only basing it off of where is number 94, left defensive end, Chase Hubbard, where is he? Okay. But also what's happening deeper within this movement problem. Okay. I believe, and this is all purely anecdotal. This is all purely speculative. I will admit that because we don't, again, have eye tracking glasses on the guy, and we don't know from a thinking aloud process as to what exactly he's thinking. He might be actually believing that he's reading, aka detecting information about the postural kinematics and those cues from number 94 here, but also interpersonal distance, space, speed. But most of it is, how is that individual acting alongside of what else is happening up here? Okay. Or when I say up here, I mean out there. Okay. Remember, perception is about a functional contact with the world. The world is its best model. What is unfolding in the world and what deep, rich, meaningful information is out there that would inform me about my potential opportunities to act. Again, affordances. Okay. I'm trying to use this as an illustration as to what informational sources may be contributing to his decision making or closely corresponding to his complete integrated movement problem solving process. We're not going to get the true skillfulness of this give or go process and the decision to go until we see it from the other view. So I'll go back to that, but you can see he leaves Hubbard here like in Neverland, not able to go to 17, not able to go to 8, which is where the ball is. You're going to see why when we get to the other view. Now, once he gets to this point, remember, it's a rich landscape of opportunities or affordances that are all beckoning and inviting a player to act in a given way or their potential opportunities to act. Now, we just look at this, and I'm setting the tone here because I want you guys to think about the landscape of opportunities, the landscape of affordances. They are nested and they are simultaneous, but also successive. Meaning, if I act in this way, what will change in correspondence to my emergent actions? Hopefully that makes some sense, okay? But remember, when we're talking about perceptions, decisions, intentions, and other cognitions, and then ultimately actions as an expression of those perceptions and decisions, we have to think about how is the problem changing. And so I want you to, I want to spotlight a few things here. Okay, I'm going to heart it. Okay, we see a number of information sources, right, that are all stemming from other players in the world. Okay, we see here, and all of these things are out there in the world that Lamar has available for pickup. Now, I'm not suggesting he's attending to all of them, but in his own unique and authentic way, he's organizing his perceptual degrees of freedom in a way to contact that world and what's out there in a very functional fashion. And those information sources will channel the affordances. They will specify the affordances. Hopefully that makes some sense. So it could be opponents, it could be teammates, and it could be, where is that opponent? Where is that teammate? How is that opponent acting? How is that teammate acting? How are those problem and solution dynamics unfolding? Okay. And then, of course, we have space that is going to be an affordance in many of these cases, particularly for a guy like Lamar, who wants to get on the gas pedal and knows that he can make guys look silly in space. Number of other things I want to mention. We see the first down marker here. Okay. Right on the 50, literally right on the 50-yard line. Okay. It's 1st and 5. So he only has to pick up 5 yards to get the first down, but he has bigger intentions, bigger global intentions in mind. Global intentions, we're going to create the scaffolding, if you will, for what he's perceiving and acting. It's not only about getting to the 50, but with 108 left, he has plenty of time to operate with 3 timeouts to get his team in field goal position. And in contention of that field goal, knowing that in my back pocket as the quarterback is Lamar Jackson, you have the greatest of all time statistically, as well as the most dexterous kicker to have ever done it, in my humble opinion. Don't take that with a grain of salt. I haven't studied a lot of kickers, but when we think about dexterity and the definition of it, the ability to solve any emerging movement problem, any situation, any condition, as far as kickers go, different distances, different pressure constraints, different environmental conditions, so on and so forth. Tucker, probably the greatest to do it, right? Okay, so moment by moment here. I don't want to get lost in all the intricacies, even though I already have. Let's look at how some of these interactions, guys and gals, okay? Let me do this for you. Okay, let's look at some of these interactions and think about what it is that may be serving to that for Lamar's perceptual pickup that is going to provide the functional context for him to be able to move and navigate in this way. And that's something I want to say. We usually talk about agility and think that agility is about who can make the fastest decision or execute the quickest action. This situation, which presents a high complexity movement problem, pretty complex, numerous interacting component parts in a relatively confined space with pressure, anxiety, and the like, right? Pretty complex movement problem. But Lamar's actions or his decisions really aren't about how rapid they can be. It's about how functionally fit they can be coordinated, controlled, and organized to meet the needs of the unfolding problem. Okay, there's a huge distinction here, because if we're only training evasive agility in this objective or with this expectation that someone has to be quick or rapid or fast, we have a problem, because most of this happens under ownership. It's a maximum controllable velocity, a maximum controllable speed. And that's what we see from Lamar Jackson here. We can see him as he moves through this traffic. He still has a certain authenticity. He's still honestly and authentically expressing himself in a Bruce Lee type of fashion. We see him dipping and diving and picking up this information in these unfolding local movement problems. What's the local movement problem here, guys and gals? Because I'm using a lot of terminology. It's this problem right here between, let me see if I can, let's think of Lamar, boom, heart here, offensive lineman in space, linebacker in space. This local movement problem that has gotten more in a tunnel or more confined. He has to solve local movement problem by local movement problem put together subsequently and successively. Okay, hopefully that makes some sense. In each local movement problem will be solved in relation to what came before and what potentially could come again. Okay, so we look at this, look at him right now, landscape of opportunities, right? He could continue to press right up to his offensive lineman. He could look to press that a little further and then potentially exploit a gap, knowing, again, remember, affordances emerge and decay, and they do so in American football really rapidly. Or he could look to find a way to bounce this to the sideline to get outside, okay? And in order to determine what is the most accurate decision and represent the most functional movement solution, he has to stay connected in a very functional fashion or way. There are no if this then that type of rules here, is my point. He is living and breathing in this highly alive movement problem. Okay, hopefully that makes some sense. But he still, if you watch him, authentically creating and moving and going with the flow. Again, Bruce Lee, water-like fashion. Look at him pick and choose his path and way through this and move from one information source to the next and get a quick update of them being the online information sources in a highly emergent fashion. And you can see it's almost like 50% speed. He's operating at 50% speed, and the rest of the world is unfolding in 100% speed. And he's keeping options open moment by moment, step by step. And we could say that about every one of these local movement problems, right? He's now look at where are we? You can see his perception is here, but is it solely on this guy, his blocker in space, or is it also while he's picking up in his periphery this exchange, this dyadic relationship between another blocker and another defensive back potential tackler, or at least an obstacle, right? My proposal would be that, again, like Gibson said, as one gets more skillful, their perception gets wider, longer, deeper, and then more resolute when and where it needs to. The other thing that we want to not miss here, let's think about this. These are very black jerseys, right? Versus very white jerseys. And my point with drawing this black and white distinction is, like, let's not pretend that the player isn't picking up or perceiving colors as well, especially when something is happening at this type of rapid fashion. If we talk to highly skillful offensive players and we talk to them about their lived experience immediately after a play, they often will talk about seeing flashes of colors, okay? It isn't just about seeing flashes of bodies. It's about being able to distinguish, is that my guy or the other team's guy? Okay. And then now we see Lamar come through here, still juking, ducking, diving, and ends up with that lack of calibration, that lack of skillful calibration, and trips over Devin Duvernay, number 13's foot and ankle here. Otherwise, he might have just been in a race with number 30 here, Jesse Bates. We see 30 entering the picture out of that exchange. If Lamar gets through this gap right here, it might just be number 30 right here coming off the end of the screen, and number 8, Lamar Jackson, heading down the sideline in a foot race, right? And I think he sees that, gets a little ahead of himself, starts moving his feet a little too rapidly, and isn't adequately calibrated to where he needs to be in this interaction, or as he comes through that interaction with Duvernay. And you can see he's like, oh man, I could have had a true walk off here. Though my guess is he probably would have, took a deliberate kneel down or slide later down the field in order to just set Justin Tucker up for an easier field goal, an even more chip shot or gimme than a Justin Tucker field goal already was. Now, a couple of things I want to mention here as we wind down and see it from another view. We're going to see it from 2 more views, of course. Let's look at how masterful this give fake becomes to deceive and freeze number 94 here. Okay. We looked at 94 before, but we're going to see it in a totally different way now. Look at how long this ball is still, okay. You can see it. Lamar still has it in the pocket of number 17, who I want to say is J.K. Dobbins, but I'm not certain. Whoever number 17 is, his running back. And on this give. And so it is freezing number 94 here. And at the same time, he's looking deeper. Another linebacker. What do I have to do next? Successive affordances here, guys and gals, simultaneous and successive affordances. Okay, he has to make sure that he freezes 94, but he also then has to educate his perceptual gaze and his attentional pickup, his perceptual pickup of this next linebacker, knowing full well that he also is going to have this offensive lineman going out into space as well, maybe more at that angle. Okay, Hopefully that makes some sense. I'm going to go through this a little faster. And then as he does that, this commitment from this linebacker was a misjudgment and a misaction going out with the running back, right? And essentially two guys went to the running back, and Lamar now knows I made the right decision, the appropriate decision. And now it's just about solving this problem in the most functional ways. Guys and gals, we want to talk about this rich landscape of affordances. Now you can see why I always talk about being able to see things in any number of views to truly gain a more complete understanding of the movement problem solving story, right? What looked like before on the sideline view wasn't a bunch of opportunities there, or it looked like Lamar was going to have to create and adapt in order for an opportunity to emerge. Now we see rich sea and landscape of opportunities, or so I hope you see that. Okay. And as we watch him pick and choose his way through here, I hate to keep hitting the pause button. You can see he's trying to make these decisions online in the moment in a highly dynamic and emergent fashion in this complex movement problem. But guys and gals, look at what information he might be picking up in order to do so. Okay. We see lineman, blocker, and linebacker, defender, right? But look at the postural information that the more skillful mover is going to be gaining. Look at the way that this linebacker is leaning. And as Lamar, in a problem and solution continual reciprocal relationship, mutual reciprocal exchange, he's pushing off that right side. Okay, you can see him. He's extending and trying to cut towards his left at the moment. Picks up the information about this linebacker and where that linebacker is leaning and where that linebacker could functionally go. He could optimize or occupies rather that space. So watch what Lamar does in an adaptability, without adaptability type of fashion. Look at that foot right back into the ground. So boom, boom, and he's back into this other hole because he essentially had this defender on a string. So you want to know why this movement is the move, or why this play is the movement play of the week? It's for these types of minutia, these types of nuances that represent the highest level of skill. There are layers here, and Lamar Jackson has all the layers. Talk about adaptability yet again. Obviously, I'm getting excited now, stumbling upon my words. How could I not? Okay. And look at this adaptability as we look at the evasive agility actions of Lamar Jackson. Guys and gals, that's special stuff. Okay. Special stuff. And now again, we see the ball. Watch the ball here, and you can see why Hubbard, number 94, doesn't have the faintest clue. Look at his position, and he's locked and loaded, trying to remain open and responsive. But because of this fake and then the subsequent movement actions of Lamar Jackson, he doesn't even get a piece of them. And now we watch Lamar work and in a marvelous, magical movement skill type of fashion. Guys and gals, this can be trained. Okay. Now, maybe not this level of movement skill, probably can't be trained, right? But when I say that can be trained, we can set up representative scenarios, representative situations where a player can operate at that ownership speed, that we can have other players, both opponents as well as teammates, operating in various space. Okay. I do this all the time with the offensive and defensive players that I work with. This is a tight traffic scenario that we use religiously, where the offensive player is starting from a different position on the field and the traffic is moving in highly emergent, dynamic, and somewhat chaotic and unpredictable fashions. And the offensive skill player with the ball in their hands can and should operate at their ownership speed to pick and choose their way through that traffic and to perceive and make decisions and act in an integrated, intertwined fashion as they are authentically creating in that respective scenario and situation. So I think this is a perfect play to illustrate what coaches could or should be doing more of, whether one is a football coach and they are training running backs or quarterbacks in this case, or wide receivers, or really any ball carrier, or whether we're on the other side of the ball and we're trying to train defenders to be able to pick up these nuances from a player with a ball in their hands. Or if someone is a movement professional, a sport movement specialist, strength and conditioning coach, whatever hat you wear, this, guys and gals, is where evasive agility lives and breathes. It's not in always making the fastest decision or executing the most rapid of actions. And Lamar Jackson hopefully was able to paint that picture for us a little bit more clearly here today in week 5 of the 2022 National Football League season. So for our movement play of the week, Football Beyond the Stats, the Movement Miyagi, Sean Mishka. I will see you guys again in week 6. If you like this video, give me the thumbs up. Make some comments below if you have questions, ideas, or thoughts, and I will be certain to entertain them. I will see you guys in week 6.